Episode 8: Voronezh Case. Voronezh, Russia. On September 27, 1989, one of the most famous Russian UFO cases occurred, when a flying saucer landed in the locality of Voronezh. Several witnesses observed the approach and landing of the object, as well as had contact with its occupants. It all began around 6:30 p.m. when a flying object, circular in shape and reddish in color, approached Uji Park, being spotted by many people in the area. The object was initially about 250 meters high and started making circular movements while descending towards the ground. It hovered 10 meters above a tree and then disappeared. A few minutes later, it reappeared and landed on a lawn, witnessed by 4 boys who were playing football. It had a circular shape, approximately 12 meters in diameter, and was supported by 4 legs. A tall occupant, approximately 2.70 meters tall, with 3 eyes on his face, emerged from the object through a door. He was wearing a silver jumpsuit, bronze-colored boots, and some kind of disc on his chest. The occupant returned to the object and closed its door. After a few minutes, the door opened again, and other occupants, similar in appearance to the first one, came out. A smaller-sized robot was also observed. The occupants manipulated something on the robot, which then started functioning. Another occupant collected some plant and soil samples. Yet another occupant emitted beams of light towards the ground from the disc on his chest. The occupants had terrifying looks, and one of the boys, named Vasya Sorin, frightened, screamed in terror. The scream caught the attention of an occupant, who stared at the boy with bright eyes. The boy became immobilized, unable to move or scream, while the occupants and the robot entered the craft, which then took off. The boy immediately regained his ability to move afterward. Around 5 minutes later, the object reappeared, and an occupant came out holding a tube about 50 centimeters long, pointing it at a 16-year-old boy who disappeared in front of his friends. Shortly after, the occupant entered the craft, which took off simultaneously as the young boy reappeared. During the encounter between the witnesses and the occupant, there was no communication between them. Shortly after the incident, investigators arrived at the scene and discovered landing marks, which were the size of bricks and sunk about 5 centimeters into the ground, presumably left by some kind of flying craft. They also detected traces of cesium isotopes, which the vice-rector of Voronezh University stated to be insignificant.
When I arrived at the park, the landing marks were still fresh, and they were the size of bricks, sunk about 5 centimeters into the ground. But after talking to 16 children and 7 adults, I was convinced that something had really happened there,
said Miguel Bus, one of the investigators involved in the case. The case was initially reported by the Telegraph Agency of the Soviet Union and was later reproduced by newspapers worldwide, including excerpts from the witnesses' testimonies. One of the witnesses was Lieutenant Sergei Matveyev from the Voronezh Police District, who observed the object's passage. According to the correspondent of the Soviet Skaya Kultura newspaper, FMRV, there was no discrepancies in the description of the circular object itself or the actions of the aliens. Furthermore, all the children who became witnesses to this event were still scared. According to the physics professor at Voronezh University, Stanislav Kadmensky, what landed in the park was truly extraordinary.
I cannot doubt that so many people, adults, children, and teenagers, could have been led astray by some kind of hoax. It can be said that over 100 people witnessed something that really happened that day in the park. The details of what they witnessed also match. There was no difference. What landed there obviously was nothing like any terrestrial aircraft, such as a helicopter or an airplane.
UFOs were observed over the city on some of the following days. Reporter Michael Buss discovered another case that occurred during the same period and in the same city. Aircraft mechanic Igor Yedidin, an employee of the local airport, was on duty one night when he observed a UFO landing on the airport runway. An occupant wearing a spacesuit descended from the object. Through the visor of the strange creature's helmet, the witness saw scenes of a nuclear disaster. The Voronezh case remains to this day as one of the most significant ufological events in the former Soviet Union.
Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and to turn on the notifications. I will see you on the next episode of UFO Real.